Welcome, and thank you for joining us today for this webinar on superhero leadership. My name is Barb Rawson with Kirkwood Training and Outreach Services. Heather Marquez will be your presenter today on superhero leadership. Heather is a John Maxwell certified coach and trainer and a Personality Insight certified human behavior model specialist. Her focus is to help individuals and teams drive results through growth and development. And now I'll turn it over to Heather.
It is an honor to be here. I'm so excited to have the opportunity to speak to you today about superhero leadership, because I also get the opportunity every day to work with business owners and executives to help them become superhero leaders and also help them develop the next level of superheroes in their organization. So this might age me just a little bit, but I grew up in an era where there were Saturday morning cartoons, and you could go to any drugstore and find comic books lining the shelves along with the magazines. And we had campy TV shows with ridiculously obvious special effects and bad costumes. I even remember at one point there was somebody dressed up in a dinosaur costume, and you could actually see the zipper to the costume. So I've been a fan all my life of superheroes and the lessons that come with the comic books, TV shows, and now the incredible movies that they're putting out. And today I'm going to talk to you a bit about what superhero leadership is, 5 things you need to do to be super in your organization, and we're going to talk a little bit about kryptonite, because after all, every superhero has kryptonite. So what is superhero leadership? Well, superhero leadership is essentially influence. Now, I remember on Saturday morning watching the Super Friends, you would see the intro and there would be this beautiful Hall of Justice. And they would say, right now at the Hall of Justice, and they would show all the superheroes having a meeting, talking about how they're going to save the world. And it was quite spectacular. And then shortly after that scene, they would say, meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom. And you would see this really oddly shaped building rise out of this murky swamp, which gave it a very ominous feel. And right away, as a kid, you knew which one you wanted to be. You wanted to be part of the Hall of Justice. This is just like your workplace. Every day you get the opportunity to decide, are you going to make your workplace the Hall of Justice or the Hall of Doom? And so it really comes down to influence. And there are particular things around influence that everybody needs to understand. First of all, it's just really, how are people looking at you? Are you the good boss or the bad boss? Good and evil, good and bad, it's all a choice that we have every single day. So a few types of influence from the bad boss are force, intimidation, manipulation, and even using their position to get what their agenda is pushed forward. Now, some good examples of using influence in a positive way is through exchange, where there's win-win. Through persuasion, where people have a choice and you get to share your side, but listen to the other side as well. And then there's also respect, and this is a really powerful piece of influence. Now, it's important to note that not everybody has the equal amount of influence in all areas. You're going to be far more influential in certain areas and with certain people than other people in your organization. And it'll be that way throughout the organization. Everybody will have a different level of influence with different individuals and teams. Now, with influence comes great responsibility. Just like a superhero having super strength, you can't walk up to a bank vault and just rip the door open and take the money because you have super strength. You have a responsibility to protect the bank vault from the supervillain who is taking advantage of their superpowers. Now, influence is something that can grow, and we're going to talk about 5 things you can do right now in your organization in order to grow your influence and be able to be that superhero leader with a variety of people on your team. The other thing about influence to remember, the difference between influence and manipulation really comes down to, are you adding value to others through your leadership? If you're adding value, you're joining the Hall of Justice. But if you're manipulating, meaning you're just pushing your own agenda without regard to anybody else, you have just entered the Hall of Doom and been accepted as a member. So you have to decide what you'll choose. Every single day is about a decision. Now, the interesting thing is we also have people on our teams who are informal influencers. And as a leader, you have to be able to really identify those people and influence those individuals so that you can build your influence throughout the organization with people maybe that you wouldn't normally be able to get to. I remember years ago in one of the organizations I was working with, we had a young lady who only worked part-time with us, but as I would watch her, it was interesting to see how much influence. She had no position, no title, no keys. She wasn't even full-time, but yet when she said something, everybody bought in, everybody followed it. And as a leader, I had a choice to either embrace that and work with her to help influence some of those that maybe I didn't have the strongest influence with, or I could fight against that all the time, which didn't always work well because sometimes she could be the negative voice in the group. So every day you're going to have these situations as a leader that you'll face, and you get to pick, do you want to be a superhero or a supervillain with your leadership? Now, one of the things that you need to take into consideration as a superhero leader is integrity. When you think about Superman, he always focused on equal protection for everybody, and he set the example. He always acted out of integrity. Now, the times that he didn't, where he put one person's needs ahead of the group, so Lois Lane, for example, every time he put Lois Lane's needs ahead of everybody else, it got him into trouble. So as a leader, integrity is about leading by example. It's about following the values of the organization and being accountable beyond yourself. You're not just accountable to the person in the mirror, but you are accountable to every single person on that team. Now, another easy example of putting the interests of others first is imagine if you go to get coffee at a local Starbucks in the morning and there's a line of 9 people and you're number 10. But all of a sudden, person number 3 in that line is your best friend. Now, here's where the difference between a superhero and a supervillain comes in. Their friend could say, hey, come jump in line with me, come talk to me, and it'll be all good. A supervillain would say, yeah, I'll skip the line. I'm in a hurry. I'm more important than anybody else in the line. A superhero leader would say, no, you come back and talk to me because it's not right that I jump the line. I wouldn't like it if somebody did that to me. So you have to think about your integrity as a leader and the decisions you're making, even when nobody is looking or when you don't think the people around you are going to be impacted, because you never know. You're always on stage. That's part of the reason superheroes have their alter egos. Now, unfortunately, we don't necessarily get that, but we do get a balance as leaders between home and work. However, integrity is something that is a common thread throughout both home and work. How you show up at either place is how you're going to show up at the other one. Now, the next piece to understand about leadership and to grow your influence is nurturing. Think about Robin. Batman found Robin. His family he had lost his family, and he nurtured him. He cultivated him, and eventually Robin became his very own superhero personality, changing his name to Nightwing and becoming this great leader in his own right. Now, there was a pivotal moment for Robin where he could have made a choice to use his skills and his brilliance for evil, but Batman took him under his wing and he nurtured him. He poured into him and helped him become that next superhero. Now, it's like planting a seed. Anytime you plant a seed, it has to be placed in the right environment with the right ingredients. You have to water it. It needs sunlight. Every individual on your team is just like that. It's not about creating dependence. It's about your commitment to people, about loving people, and about lifting them up to a higher level and always being conscious of taking the actions to lift them up to a higher level. Now, the next quality that a leader really needs to focus on is faith. And when I think about faith as a superhero, Wonder Woman always comes to mind. She sacrificed everything and always made choices because she had faith in mankind. That was a driving factor for her. And it didn't matter, especially if you've seen the newest movie, what happened. Her faith in mankind is the thing that triumphs over everything. No matter what she saw, no matter what evil acts anybody contributed, she held strongly onto her belief and her faith in others. And as a superhero leader, that's really important. If you come from a place of fear, dislike, or contempt with any of the individuals on your team, it's going to keep you from having full faith in them. And with faith, it's about believing in others and allowing them to borrow your belief until they build it in themselves. It's helping them build confidence that they can be the next generation of leaders in your organization. But it's got to come from you, and it's got to be strong. Now, the next piece with superheroes is listening. This is such a powerful skill, and quite honestly, tends to be the most challenging skill for any superhero leader. We often are busy on our computers, on our mobile devices, and we barely take time to glance up when somebody's standing in front of us trying to get help, get support, or get a need fulfilled. So there is an easy way to remember what you need to do to listen well, and it's called ladder. So L, look at the speaker. Make eye contact with them. A, ask questions. D, don't interrupt. Give them a pause after they speak to make sure there's nothing else brewing that needs to be said. The next D, don't change the subject. It's so easy as leaders to be thinking ahead of what they're saying and all of a sudden move on to the next subject. You've got to wait until they're ready to move on to the next subject. E is emotion. Understand the undercurrent of emotion that's happening in the conversation, what that other person is feeling and what you're feeling. If you find yourself getting so emotional that your passion is taking over and you're not listening, it might be time to pause the conversation and ask to meet again when the emotions aren't running so high. If there's a strong current of emotion for the other person, they might need that same break in order to gather themselves and gather their thoughts. There isn't ever a productive conversation that happens when two people are overly emotional. Now, the last one, R, is responsive listening. Let them say the things they need to say, and then again, continue to ask questions, paraphrase, but stay focused on whatever it is that they're talking about. Give them a nod every once in a while. Lean forward to show them that you're really into what they're saying. Listen for what is in their heart, what is their hope, what is their hurt, and ask yourself, how can I help? And I think that's really important. So I want to say it one more time. You're listening for what's in their heart, what is their hope, what is their hurt, and then you're asking yourself as a superhero leader, how can I help? That's adding value. Now, the last thing that we want to talk about when it comes to being a superhero leader, and this is another tough one, it's understanding. You have to provide your team with understanding. And I think about this when I think of in the Marvel universe, how there's the X-Men and Professor Xavier provides this safe place for people who aren't understood by the normal population to come and find a tribe of people who get them. As a leader, you need to work to get them. So establish a strong relationship. To do that, you need to come from a place of selflessness, and you need to be focused on reducing barriers to communication. So really dig deep and walking in their shoes, understanding from their side what they're going through. Most people don't make decisions or take actions intentionally with the thought of being bad or not performing. Most people want to perform. They just may not have the right framework to make those proper decisions in. So take some time to understand where they're coming from. That is an incredibly powerful technique for building your influence with those around you. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Kryptonite. Every superhero has their own version of Kryptonite. And it's not always as obvious as a green crystal that's wielded around and brings us to our knees. So we're going to talk about a few different types of Kryptonite that are most common for leaders. Now, Batman is the first superhero that I want to talk about. When you think of Batman, he is strategic. He's tech savvy. He's intelligent, highly, highly intelligent. He's also very process driven. Now, here's where Batman can fall into a little bit of a trap. When you look at all those qualities, he also can be driven by ego. And that can cause you to become judgmental as a leader. So when we see ego go to its extreme, it's sort of like looking at the Joker. That's sort of the opposite side or the extreme of that Kryptonite. Now, ego can serve a purpose. It can help build some confidence. But if taken to an extreme, that Kryptonite can throw any superhero into becoming a supervillain. Now, the next superhero that we're going to talk about is my favorite, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman always operates from a high level of integrity. She has conviction. Her beliefs are so incredibly strong that they navigate everything she does. She's also extremely achievement driven. When you look at her history and how she started, it was always about achieving, doing something of significance. She also falls into competition, and that's really where her Kryptonite shows up. There has to be a good balance between competition and collaboration. Now, when Wonder Woman competed with the rest of the Amazons in order to have the right to come save mankind and represent the Amazons doing that, that was a great way for competition to show up. However, there are times when competition can be taken to an extreme and it can break down a team. That's where we need to find that good balance between competition and collaboration. And when I think of competition taken to an extreme, I think of our friend Lex Luthor, who always wants to win everything, no matter what the cost to others, no matter what the cost to his team. It is always about his agenda and him landing on top. Now, as a leader, it's important to have a sense of competition because who doesn't want their team to win, right? We wouldn't want any superheroes to go try and save the day and say, it's okay if we don't win. That's not what we're looking for here, but we're looking for winning for the right reasons and winning appropriately and winning with the team. So competition is really important, but it has to be balanced with collaboration. Now that brings us to Superman, who is probably the most well-known superhero out there. He is honest. He's supportive. He's just a good guy, and he always volunteers to serve. He is the first one ready to go and put others first. However, pride often gets in his way. It's great to have pride and take pride in the things you do because it motivates you to do things with excellence. However, in leadership, pride can often be the thing that keeps you from asking for help. It can impact inclusion. And one of the most important things that people need in an organization is a sense of inclusion, a sense of belonging. So as a leader, You have to really keep control of your pride and understand, is that causing you to take all of the accolades or to not ask for help and become overwhelmed where you go to maybe a bad place? The superhero villain that tends to really exhibit this is Catwoman. In the movie Batman Returns, again, showing a little bit of my superhero history here, she finds out that a villain is having a negative impact on the city. He has a horrible plan for the city. However, her pride keeps her from actually taking Batman's help when he extends it, and it pushes her into that supervillain role. She thinks she can just do it on her own. She isn't thinking about the bigger picture. And pride can be that thing that keeps us as leaders from thinking about the bigger picture and how we're impacting those around us. Now, the last superhero that I want to talk about is Green Lantern. Everybody knows and loves Green Lantern. He tends to be the really creative superhero. After all, his superpower is dependent on how big his imagination is, and that imagination usually leads to a pretty good sense of humor. He's also a risk taker. He was a jet pilot. He absolutely loves the thrill of everything. However, sometimes his security in who he is really stemming from a sense of insecurity, and that's Green Lantern's kryptonite. His insecurity takes over and makes him not such a great team member quite often. When we see insecurity take over, we see that usually manifest as a leader not wanting to share knowledge or enlarge somebody and lift them up or help them get to the next level, because the leader's afraid, well, if I do that, if I tell them what I know, then they're going to take my job. They're going to take my place. Green Lantern is often the superhero that loves the spotlight. And to be a superhero leader, you have to be willing and at times eager to not be in the spotlight and give that spotlight to somebody else so that you can create opportunities for your future superheroes to practice their skills, take a few risks, and become that strong superhero. Now, we see this happen with Penguin. Penguin is very insecure about his background, who he is in general, his appearance. And so because of that, that motivates him to keep information really tight to his vest and be super controlling in everything he does, which tends to alienate all the other supervillains. So every single one of us have a kryptonite. These four that I covered are usually the most common kryptonites that we see in leaders. But to be a superhero leader, it's not about not having a kryptonite. It's about identifying your kryptonite and having the awareness to understand when it is operating for your best benefit and that of your teams, or when it's undermining your superhero leadership. Now, all superhero leaders also take time to invest, and this is really crucial. Now, money is always the easiest assumption here, but there are other things just as, if not more, important than investing money, and that is time. We have to give our teams our time. We also have to give them time to attend things that are going to grow and stretch them, time to work on their own self-development. We have to give them trust. We have to trust that they are going to make the right decisions, trust in their abilities, and give them opportunities to shine and take risk. We also have to give them truth. And that means when they're not cutting it as a superhero, when they rushed in to save the day, but didn't notice that they knocked down an entire building and crashed the project, we've got to talk to them about that. We can't say, well, it was great that you saved the day. We still need to address that they brought down the entire building, because that was not a good benefit of their actions. So as a superhero leader, truth tends to be probably the most challenging, because we all have varying shades of gray. We don't always think in black and white, and we try and soften the edges. What I'm going to challenge you to do as a superhero leader is try and stay as close to the black and white while still being faithful and believing in people and nurturing them as you possibly can. Because when you start to get too gray, the truth starts to get too gray, and that can compromise your ability to influence. Now, the thought I really want to leave you with is it's not about the costume. You don't have to have a costume to be somebody's superhero. With every action you make, you are influencing someone in the workplace. It comes down to being intentional about your choice. So will you join the Hall of Justice and be a superhero leader, or are you joining the Legion of Doom and being a supervillain? The choice is yours, and you have to make that choice with every action every day. Now, with that, I do want to share with you an event that we have coming up, and I'll turn it over to Barb at this point to talk about that event.
Sure. So in closing today, in today's economy, it is critical to find and keep the right candidates to grow your business. But with a tight local unemployment rate, how do you find the right person to hire? And once you get them, how do you keep them and help them to grow? We invite you to join us at Kirkwood's annual Recruit, Retain, and Develop event on December 7th to find out the answers to these questions. Some of the topics that you will hear at this event are Superhero Recruiting by Heather, Recruiting Success at Bergen KDV, Millennials, the Job Hopping Generation, and Internal Training Programs That Work, presented by 3 local award-winning businesses. For more information, please go to our website to register. Thank you for joining us today for the webinar on Superhero Leadership by Heather Marquez.